Okay, once again, back on the Ultimate Sports Network. This is Real Boxing Talk. Why I say the same thing every time, I don't know, but I've never been original. Anyway, so.
Keeping it real, Frank.
Keeping it real. Okay, here's what we're looking at this week. We're looking at what happened last week, which we always do, and a few things that are coming up in the future, which we always do. But we've kind of started talking about what fights mean now and what fights we're seeing now. And we talked about Trone, we talked about a few other things. There are a couple more of those things that are happening that maybe are good things, maybe not good things. So we'll touch on those as well. But first, let's review what happened last week. And let's start with the big thing that should have been a big thing that is now a big thing. And John was talking about on Max Boxing, the amount of coverage that was or the amount of people that came to the table to talk about this. And I've looked at a lot of the sites out there and a lot of the blogs and everything, and I am dumbfounded by how many people were surprised that Evander Holyfield got his butt kicked. Well, he looks like he doesn't have the same skills. He's 103 years old. What do you expect? So, John, take us away with that, and then Charles is gonna have a little bit to slap around with that as well.
Well, I remember while you're talking, Frank, about what Charles was saying about this is entertainment. This kind of stuff is entertainment. And if you're entertained by watching an almost 59-year-old legend get his butt kicked, then I compared it to being a rubbernecker watching a train wreck or a car accident. You like to sit there and look at those kind of things. That's what popped into my mind.
To me, it's let me interrupt you real quick.
Sure.
It's not just a rubbernecker. You've got the police scanner there next to you, waiting for it. Yeah,
you do, and I don't know if we mentioned it last week or I mentioned it. I should have. That I'd seen the tape of Holyfield hitting the mitts, and I was like, is he like taking it easy, or is he says like in slow motion?
Yeah.
He looked good, but I remember, I'll never forget how great Muhammad Ali looked when he got in the ring against Larry Holmes. He was down to 217. He looked really good. He looked like his old self. No.
So, yeah.
So it's an illusion. And a lot of people bought it. And I mean, the whole night was ridiculous, except the professional fights. I'm not taking any away from them. The Vences Carroll fight, as I told you, not a great fight.
Right.
It was very tactical and enjoyable. The David Haye fight was ridiculous. He's fighting one of his best friends. They're making it sound like a grudge match. I mean, it was total fraud, total BS. So when he fights him, 30 seconds in, it's like he's moving around the ring and he won't, the haymaker, right? He never threw one. For 8 rounds, he never threw his right hand once. If he did, he threw it on near the hip, so the guy.
Yeah.
All he did was just jab the guy in the face, and then he's talking about he wants to fight Fury after. I'm like, so then we get to the main, and I'd given up by then. I didn't want to see it because I figured I knew it was coming. I didn't want to see it. I don't like that kind of stuff. I compared when Holyfield, when I watched the highlights, he swung and missed and went through the ropes. I flashed on Willie Mays trying to catch that fly ball in center field and doing something he never did, which was slipping and dropping the ball. I was watching the game. Willie Mays, you're talking about one of the greatest baseball players ever. Now, Holyfield isn't one of the greatest fighters to me ever, but he's one of the greatest determination fighters, if that's a word, determination fighters. He is determined fighters that I've ever seen, and courageous. So he deserves everything. He deserves the accolades that he gets, no doubt about it. But this was ridiculous, and he could barely move.
Yeah.
And then he gets knocked down, and he gets up right away. And of course, when they stop it, he says no. And some people even said it was stopped too early, and I'm like,
it should have been stopped last week.
Yeah, he should have never made it into the ring. Yeah. I mean, the one thing that's coming out of it, I read that the president of Quiller or whatever they are is saying that that's it. No more of this. We'll see. Because it's all about money. But to me, and people probably won't like this, but I don't care. That is as low as boxing has ever gone as far. And boxing has gone very low. Let's be honest. I I mean, I thought it was the most disgraceful thing. And I mean, I wrote an article, and so much for my hopeful, dreamed of announcer career, because I even ripped the announcers. I said, anyone who's associated with this, and that was
Right.
Sean Porter, who we're going to talk about.
Right.
You should be embarrassed beyond belief. What are you doing? Todd Grissom, who I like when he does the fights, he's a very solid announcer. They had the ex-president on there with his son. I mean, oh, please. I mean, it went from a circus to a freak show immediately, and then they bring in all this, and the crowd, I don't know how many people were there. It didn't look like a big crowd to me. I don't know, and I haven't heard pay-per-view numbers. You paid $50 for that? You got to be ashamed of yourself. So it was just about as disgraceful, as horrific as anything I've ever seen, and I'm hopeful that maybe, at least for some of this, because the Jake Paul, he'll be back. Holyfield and all that. No Holyfield Tyson rematch or third fight, please. Tyson is in much better shape as far as boxing at his age than Holyfield. So that's it. Done. This old timers tour. Hopefully, De La Hoya will do what he does. Anybody over 50 or anybody in that kind of condition where it's obvious, that is it. You're not going to stop people who want to make money. And hey, this is America. You want to make money? I don't have a problem with that. Just, it's that line in Rocky 2. Here I go giving movies again. When Creed is tormenting Rocky. Remember, he's like, he wants the rematch, and Rocky's like, nah. And he says to Mickey, I just got to be around it. And he says, these guys are going to be looking at you going, where's your dignity? Yeah. And that's kind of what I thought when I was watching. Not the fighter. I mean, fighters always want to fight. They'd be 100 years old. They want to fight. It's in them. They love it. But the other people, don't you have any integrity? Don't you have any character? Aren't you dignified again in any way that you say, well, I love the almighty buck. But in this case, I'm not putting it on what could have been really tragic if Holyfield got hurt really bad. He could have. So, and he's already, it's hard to understand him. It was just horrific.
Charles, it made me think, and it's been making me think, that this is a day and age where P.T. Barnum would be going, nah, you guys are way over the top. I mean, it's beyond that. The guy that would do anything for a buck would go, no, you guys need to just take a step back.
But he's got character.
Yeah, well, compared to these guys, yeah. I mean, it's ridiculous. So now, we touched on something, though, that in the last couple of weeks we've talked about, well, Triller is doing this to get into that. But you're really not sure that's the case now. But if we look at another couple of weeks, Triller now has the Teofimo Lopez George Kambosos fight. So maybe that's the case. So can we take Triller seriously, Charles, or is this just kind of, well, it's going to morph into something good, or is this a one-off? And why is this on that network for that matter?
Well, first of all, I think P.T. Barnum would have rolled with it. He might have said deep down inside, yeah, I feel you, John. I love you, man. I think you're absolutely right. But I cannot believe that people are going to pay for it. So, John, for as much as I think you're absolutely right, P.T. Barnum will be like, we got to get this money, baby.
I agree. He would have went, I don't care. I don't care.
Maybe
people sucker born every minute, right?
Yeah. Right. He said nobody's being hurt, no children and no older people or women or children are being hurt. I'm gonna get this money. That's what he was. He might have said when he's having a scotch and soda, yeah, afterwards, yeah, you're absolutely right, John. But do you see the receipts that I'm bringing in?
Right.
It's like Don King. You think Don King would have cared about this? You think he would have even thought anything about it?
Yeah, that's true.
No.
Let's just say this, though, because, John, I got a soft spot for Don King in a way. I'm going to say 95% of all the damn promoters would have done the same thing.
Of course.
Yeah, you're probably right. You're right.
Of course.
I know they separate Don King, and he's not the greatest individual in the world. But I think when you try to separate, a snake is a snake is a snake.
Level of the snake.
You might different colors of the snake, but at the end of the day, a snake is a snake. Anyway, but get back to your point about Triller.
I'm hearing a Duran song in my head for some reason.
It appears as if Triller is serious because I think they really saw how bad that was. And if they really want to be considered a player in the boxing game, want to be considered serious, you need to start providing stuff that people really want to see, because the legitimate boxing fans, that is, because evidently somebody wants to see what you showed because they bought it. But I hate to sound like a broken record, but everybody laughed at me, thought I was crazy, thought I was nuts, and that's okay. That's Charles' life. So I'm good with that. So thank y'all for adding to what I already know. Okay, but what we found out is my idea about entertainment and boxing not so bad. So if you know it's entertainment, you know what to expect. Holyfield comes out, you know, he wants to get the money, but I think somebody forgot to tell Victor Belfort that this was an exhibition, because he was like, motherfucker.
What?
him and Anderson Silva. Because Silva got busy with Ortiz, like, dude. So somebody forgot to tell him, but that made for more entertainment, because you didn't expect them to come out to really fight. So I like that. And the David Haye thing, man, really, I'm like, dude, if I had any respect for him as a boxer, it went out the door, because it was like, you didn't throw one damn punch. And then you try to get all mad, and then y'all hug right before the last round. Man, give me a break. But again, when I put it in perspective, entertainment, boxing, I was like, all right, I'm not paying for it. But if you want to, with a weed or marijuana sponsor, have at it. Just let me know what it's gonna be. And I think when you look at it, like Floyd told you, you want to pay $79.99 to watch me be an entertainer? That's what I'm doing. So that's on you. That's not on me. But he told you. So for those that like this type of thing, have at it, do it. I'm just not gonna watch it. I do not consider it boxing. I do not. I said it from day one. So I used to be mad when it first started. I used to be a little frustrated and angry. But being a boxing fan, no longer. I see it for what it is. In fact, I might trademark entertainment boxing, so I get that real quick. For something with that, to that regard, but knowing what it is. But then on the other hand, boxing is just totally different. So hopefully Triller really, if they're serious, will start to eliminate it, because you mentioned they had Teofimo Lopez fight coming up. So if you want to be serious, show us that you're serious and get away from the entertainment spot. And if you do another entertainment card, make it strictly all entertainment, because people will know what it is. They can respect you and say, we know what we're getting. I'm still putting down $59.99 because I know I'm watching. I just want to be entertained. I want to smoke a little weed, drink me a scotch and soda, you know what I'm saying? And sit back, get my hair right, get my hair braided and whatever, you know what I'm saying? Give me another Tom Collins to go along with it. And I know I'm watching because I'm looking for mindless entertainment tonight. And that's what I'm getting from a couple older, regular people that I really enjoy watching in their professional careers as boxers or UFC fighters. But tonight, I want to see that dream matchup that I knew never would happen until they got 79 years old. I'm okay with that. So that's where I'm at right now with that. So again, another entertainment thing. So another entertainment card. So bravo, guys. Good luck. Good. Didn't bother me. I just shook my head because I looked at Holyfield. I was like, and he's like, God bless him. You stop the fight for me. I'm good. I'm good. Look, I'm not hurt.
Yeah, and see, and real quick, Frank, I know I jumped in before you, just real fast. They sold the fights as real fights.
Yeah.
You know, Vince's Carroll, real fight. This young guy named Chavez was fighting, real fight. But they sold the Holyfield fight, they sold the Haye fight as real, like they made a grudge match between Haye and then Victor Belfort was saying some bad things about Holyfield, good things and bad things. So they made it so they could sell it. And then now that it's over, they're saying, oh, by the way, it was all exhibitions.
Right.
I mean, if that isn't the biggest fraud that
Hey.
Amazing.
Okay, well, but here's where we're headed. And and we've talked about this before. This is what's kind of scary. All right, I'm going to throw a couple of names out, or a few names out for who this one person has fought and where those names are now. Okay, so we're looking at Kermit Cintron. Paul Williams, Kelly Pavlik, Matthew Macklin, Martin Murray, Miguel Cotto, just to name a few guys this guy has fought. Now, he came to our attention when he was about 32, 33 years old. And that was about in 2008, 2009. We're like, this guy's been a journeyman really up until this point, and now he's world champion. How about that? Last fight was in 2019, or 2020, I'm sorry. We are now going to see next week or week after next, promoted by and fighting in Spain, Sergio Martinez.
Sergio Martinez, yeah. Yeah, he's
now,
back.
Didn't we say, what was the conversation a few months ago? And what happened to Sergio Martinez? Well, now we know. He's 46 years old and still fighting and promoting himself.
Yeah. Yeah.
And again, someone had to say, again, if more power to you if you're able to do things and make a paycheck. I don't have a problem with that part of it. But remember, didn't we say Sergio Martinez was done when he was done? I mean, Cotto just beat the ever-loving snot out of him, didn't he? Or he retired. I don't know how bad he beat him. But
he got beat up bad. He got knocked out like 5 times in that fight. Yeah.
Yeah.
He had injuries, Frank. He had knee injuries.
Sure. All those things that were leading up to that. Again, he was on the downside when he became a player in the division. And now we're looking at it now again, whatever you want to do, you do, I guess. I can't fault you for doing that. But your last main fight was in 2014, again, retired against Cotto. And he mounted this little comeback in Spain. Charles, what do you, I mean, does this continue on the path of stuff we don't need to see, or does this happen all the time and we just ignored it and we forgot about it in the history books?
No, I think that it's happened like that before because people back then were a lot more serious about their boxing. The casual younger viewers now are just kind of open to seeing something outrageous and wild, and they'll jump on it because, that sounds like a great idea to me. I'm not sure if they're they're not either their knowledge or the way that they even really care about what's legit anymore. You understand what I'm saying? You might have a few exceptions, but I think that's what it is. But to hear somebody like Sergio Martinez coming back, he's probably looking at it like, well, hell, if Holyfield can fight, he's 58. Right. Why not me?
I'm only 46.
Right. And then two, my thing is, if you're going to do that, there's only one fight I want to see. And it's going to go right into the entertainment facet. If you're going to do that again, then let's have Sergio Martinez come back. And I want to see him fight Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. one more time.
I'd like that fight. Yeah, I'd like that fight.
Why not?
Last round.
Why not? Yeah. Why not? So I've been wanting to see this fight. Chavez Jr. can get out his own way. Well, I think he will have about 2 seconds of motivation to redeem himself. And you can put it on Triller.
Yeah. You have to fight it. You'd have to fight at cruiserweight for Chavez Jr. to make weight.
Right. Well, but then it's an exhibition, so you can do that.
Right.
So that's what I'm saying. So have them fight. Right. Have an exhibition. And you said, where is he from? Where is he going to be at? Where is he fighting at now? Down in
Spain.
This is in Spain. Yeah.
Perfect. Let's have it in Spain. Chavez Jr. has a following. Bring his dad. The whole nine. Get a weed and a tequila sponsor. Let's do it, baby. I think you should have it done by December. I said, let's get it.
Can't take too long.
Call me.
Okay, but John, is this any different than Archie Moore or Jersey Joe Walcott, who fought until they were 107 years old?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they were still good. They were still good.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, Jersey Joe Walcott won the heavyweight title when he was 35, and he might have been 40. Nobody knows. Archie Moore, who nobody knows how old he was. Nobody knows how old Sonny Liston was, but they could all fight still. Holyfield can't fight anymore. What I read about Martinez was he didn't look half bad in some of his comebacks. Not that he could beat any of the top guys. Right. He's like he's like and my girlfriend and I talk about this all the time. He's like the singers, the classic singers who go out on the road, even though they really can't sing the hits that you like. They can't hit the notes. And her and I hate that because to us, that's cheap. That's cheesy. You know, if you can't hit the notes, don't go out there and try to sing it anymore. So it's you know what it is? It's a money grab. So that's what Martinez. Back to that for a second. That's why I really admire Art Garfunkel, because he said, "Look, I can't hit the notes. I can't hit the sounds of silence. I can't hit that level. So I'm not going to do it." So him and Paul Simon haven't even spoken for years because Garfunkel said, "Nope,
nope, you can't help me. Right.
You go do what you want to do. I can't. I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that to the fans." So it comes down to that. But yeah, no, big time difference with Archie Moore and Jersey Joe Walcott and guys that can fight still.
Bernard
you
Hopkins.
can still fight. Bernard Hopkins, great example, right? If you can still fight, it's okay. You mean it's always the storyline's always going to be, oh, he's 41 years old or whatever. But if he can still do it, fine. Now, the other side of the coin is Roy Jones, who kept fighting way too long. And he wasn't, I don't know, he was 40-something when he got to get knocked out. And that was sad
like
because
7 times in a row or something like that.
Yeah, the greatness of Roy Jones. I mean, I used to marvel at that man when he would fight. I would just be shaking my head going, he just did a behind-the-back punch.
Right.
You know? He loved basketball, you know. So it's there's a mixture of this, and Charles is onto something. I think if they created EBL, Entertainment Boxing League, and they put all these old guys up, I'm gonna write that down. They put all these old guys in the league, and if they want to compete, let them. As long as they can pass all the tests, as long as they're all cleared and everything's okay here, and they're less than 50. I don't want to get anybody over 50 because then Ernie Shavers might be thinking about coming back.
Oh,
Larry Humskull, I could beat those guys. He probably could.
Yeah.
He probably could. And he's like 70 now. So you'd have to make it a line where it's only so much, but if you separated that, and I'm with you guys too. I don't have a problem with it as long as it is what it is. It's when you're trying to mix it like Triller's been doing, and that's what Triller said. No more of that. We're going straight professional fighters. Okay, Teofimo, October 14th, Madison Square Garden. That's a good start. So we'll see.
Well, it's you're wearing 84-ounce gloves and Well, it reminded me, there are two things that I see here. It would be, as what you said, it would be like Frankie Valli going on tour and not be able to sing falsetto.
Right.
What would be the point? But then I saw a special where Les Paul was in his 80s or maybe in his 90s, and he was at some little club in Wisconsin, and he brought up the guitar, and he barely could make it to the stage. But once he pulled out the guitar, he was still Les Paul. So
that's fine.
And if you're a little club and there are 9 people in the club, Les Paul, is that the guy that built the guitar? Yeah, that's cool. So yeah, that nostalgia, and we're all filled with nostalgia. We all watch those movies. Charles, how many people were clamoring for Coming to America to come out? Really, it's going to be the same movie, the same cast, the same people. We don't care if the movie's any good or not. We just remember the first time we saw it. If they made Trading Places 9, we'd probably go see that. And amongst other great things, I watched The Sting 2 because I watched The Sting. The Sting 2 was with Mac Davis. Okay. But it sounded like a good idea. So who knows what you're going to get? How many times have they redone The Odd Couple? It's been on TV at least 7 different times. Okay. Because we want what we used to see. But by doing that, it diminishes what we used to see and what we're getting now, in my opinion. So even though Charles is going, okay, I've got what we call the EBL, even though I can even see the logo for that too now.
EBL, baby. Then you get a belt. You get a belt says EBL, and you have Mauricio Sulaiman present the belt at the fight. He loves belts, as we know so much.
You get a belt and a ticket, 50% off coupon to Sizzler. I think that's what
right, and you get a crown to put on your. I'm going way too far here. Wait, I'm getting into this too much, Charles.
and a little placemat where you can draw stuff in. All right, so
but you're also going to add discounted prices for edibles as far as marijuana.
For the edibles,
you got to get a sponsor for that. But I'm telling you, man, seriously, when you think about it this way, I mean, perfect example, I feel you, John. But like the Isley brothers, right? I love the Isley brothers. We all know Ronald Isley can't hit the notes. But what they have done, because I watched them in concert, this is what they do. They surround them with great musicians.
Right.
The music is impeccable. It is,
right.
I mean, it is so it gets you so in a mood that even if he can't sing with that high note, falsetto, whatever, then what they do is it is so enticing and intriguing that the music draws you in, and you, along with the backup singers, end up singing the song.
Right.
And that's what they're doing now.
Oh yeah. I know real fast. When we went to see, my girlfriend loves Hall & Oates. So as a surprise, we went to see them in Concord. And she was disappointed because Daryl Hall, who she loves, couldn't hit the notes that night. Right. Now, they've been on the road 6 months.
Right.
Daryl can still sing. But what they did is exactly what you said, Charles. Well, maybe not exactly. They shortened the hits down. They did a variety of their hits. But he had a backup singer who hit the note he couldn't hit. And they surrounded the music, the beat and all that. You go, oh, you love the song so much. It was okay. It didn't bother me. I mean, in that way that I said, oh, okay, I get it. But we enjoyed it. It was a good concert. They did their thing. And even though it was still good, is what I'm trying to say.
I have to admit, I feel you on that as far as the clarity and what we're looking for, the pureness of what it once was. It never will hit that. But
never hit that.
I will admit, and Frank will know this, I don't give a damn if they're outside my house right now. If George Clinton and Parliament Funkadelic come out right now, I'm outside. It can rain. I'm not leaving because the music is so gratifying. It is so inspirational.
True.
And I could sing lead. You can let me sing it. And if I had to back up, I mean, I understand the pureness of it. And for those that enjoy it like that, I'm good with you. But every time George Clinton is live and it never sounds the same, I'm plugging in, even online, because I love the music that much. It's like, man, it was a great time. I love it. So I feel you on that, but I'm okay. The boxing thing, I ain't really buying that.
Well, but what you're saying is exactly what they have to figure out a way to do. Yeah. And I don't know if you can do that in a one-on-one sport, but you make it so it's the experience and not just the guys going out there and going, I'm still 22 years old. You're not. So you have to make the experience better. When we saw Steely Dan here in Vegas, that was A, it wasn't the classic Steely Dan lineup, and B, that was it. I'm not even sure we heard lyrics because, again, the people in the audience, hey, you guys know the words. And he put the microphone out there, and I'm like, I didn't pay money for me.
That's true.
I paid money to hear them sing.
Right, but that's fine.
The musicianship was fantastic, right?
Yeah, and that's what I mean, truthfully, it's about the music. And
right.
I just think more people are like that now. Let's say this. I would rather hear what I'm hearing or receiving what I'm seeing without it at all. I mean, as much as how crazy that sound, and I know George Clinton has already announced 19 times he's retiring, he's not going to do it anymore. But I'm like, all right, oh man, what am I going to do? It's kind of like when people pass away, like I never, like certain things you're going to miss. Like I'll miss, not to break this too much into music, but I'll miss Luther Vandross. I'll miss Prince. I'll miss Michael Jackson. I will miss Al Jarreau.
Yeah.
And people like the Barry White, when they're gone and you can't hear it again.
Yeah.
So when they want to come out while they're still alive and kind of let somebody else do it for them, I'm in, bro. Because when it's gone, man. Well,
we've taken a quick left turn from boxing, but remember we saw James Brown in Cincinnati, and we were like, James Brown. Now, James Brown could barely even get on the stage. Let's be honest. And if you want to be critical of the show, you can be. But I got to see James Brown.
Well, see, that's what it is. See, that's what I think it is, guys, is that's the part when we were talking about it with my girlfriend is we're being very kind of, I don't want to say picky or critical, but really people really just want to see these guys again one more time, whatever. Yeah. And it's nostalgia and it's love. Yeah. And so you get swept up in it. I mean, I totally get it. I regret, this is a big change here, but I remember right before the King died, and my sister and I were talking about going to the Cow Palace, seeing him, 1976. And I didn't really, Elvis when I was in the 60s, I was in other things, did Jimi Hendrix and the Doors and all that stuff. But I really had grown to respect Elvis a lot. And my sister liked him. So it's like, well, we got to go to the Cow Palace and see him. He's only 41. It's not like he's going to die the next year.
Wow. Good. Right. Well,
and it's like real quick, Charles, it's like Frank, it's like Prince. He almost went to see Prince. And my girlfriend's son did. He loves Prince, and he saw him as one of his last concerts in Oakland. And he was he's still, like all of us, disappointed, sad about Prince. God, you talk about a genius. He saw him, and we almost went, and we're like, God. I mean, I get it. I mean, I totally get it. These people are legends.
This is why I've been trying to find the masters of the remakes of the Wonderful World of Disney, which I have the Disney Channel, and I keep looking for Salty the Sea Lion or whatever the thing.
Salty the hijack harbor seal. My movie.
It's not on. I've looked. It's not on. So someone that was in that show should say something to somebody and find that.
I tried. It's been on like 3 times since 1972. So. Not what they consider one of their masterpieces, no doubt.
I guess that might be. Okay, now let's get back to what I believe the show is called. Yeah. Okay, now we have news. News in the world of boxing. We've been talking about this for a while.
Wow.
It is on paper going to happen, and it's about gosh darn time. Now, the only thing that I can say that would have worked better for this, in my mind, only because I want to put the little needle in, is if they would have done it and figured out a couple of months later, so Top Rank and Bob Arum would have been involved, just for Terrence Crawford's sake, because Terrence Crawford deserves to be out of that situation, I think. But Sean Porter, Terrence Crawford. Now, it may be a little bit too early to try and break that down, but what is the significance of this, Charles, that we are going to actually have this fight?
Well, it's major in a number of ways, but it's major because it shows you that somebody, and maybe it's the 2 boxers, right? I'm going to give them the credit for it, realize that this is something that they both need, right? And we know they're both legitimate, but really from Terrence Crawford's sake, we've been, people like me, sorry, Terrence, but people like me have been saying, who the hell have you fought at 147 to deserve to be called the dude, right? Or the guy that deserves a shot. And finally, as I always said, you really want to fight somebody, you want to fight the man, you got to fight somebody that the man has already beaten and gave the man a hell of a test, and that was Sean Porter. So with that being said, I admire Terrence Crawford from taking the fight. I know they're friends, and I admire him for doing it, because when you're the best and you say you want the best, be the best, then you fight the best. And Porter has not really been, he's had ups and downs, but he's a tough hombre. He's a tough dude, man. He's a guy that's going to bring it in, and he's going to test Crawford, right? He's going to test him, and that's what we want to see. So I will, after this fight, I will back him off Terrence Crawford, because he stepped up to the plate. He was a man. And granted, did he really have a choice? That's the other question, because there really wasn't a lot else out there. I'm glad he stepped up. Plus 2, let's keep this in perspective, not to be a Charles Downer, not a Debbie, because I don't want to be caught up for being chauvinistic, being a Charles Downer. But the standpoint of, this is the last fight supposedly for Top Rank, right? Maybe, and before he makes a decision. And Top Rank is about the cash. So As much as they don't so-called get along with PBC and all the other crap, this is one that makes sense. It's going to be a big fight. A lot of people will watch. It makes no sense not to do it. They're finally getting past who's going to be in charge. I think Top Rank is going to kind of pretty much lead the way and whatever. So whatever you do, nobody cares. Everybody's going to make money. So I think it's very important. It's important too because I'll say this real quick. The significance is with Errol Spence Jr. having to pull back and pull out of the Pacquiao fight because of the injury. When he does return, the winner of this fight is like, hey,
where are you going to go now? Right.
But particularly Terrence Crawford. Terrence Crawford win this legitimately like, okay, what else you want me to do? And I think he has legitimate account to say that, because now it's like, we've been waiting for you to fight some damn body. You finally did. I mean, the Keith Thurman thing, I mean, until he gets in the ring, if he ever gets in the ring, I can't take that serious no more. No disrespect to him. I'm just saying. I mean, he just like, it's shatter and hell could be another 5 years. But to fight somebody that's legit, I think you got to give Terrence Crawford the love.
Well, and John, jump in here in a second, but also, and if I'm stealing what you're going to say, I'm sorry, but also looking at it this way, if you're in the Spence camp or the people who are pushing for the Spence camp, you signed to fight Pacquiao, and you weren't able to for good reason, but then Pacquiao goes and loses to Usyk, right? So the assumption would be that would have been a soft touch for you. So this will be, the winner of this fight will be the tougher fight, unless you're going to fight him. That's what you're not going to do. So now Crawford, if he wins, has proven something more so than you would have proven having fought Pacquiao.
I don't know if it would have been softer. I think Pacquiao would have gave Spence issues. I do. I think that was part of what happened to Pacquiao, is he kind of lost his focus a little bit. And Ugas is really underrated. The guy is awkward. The guy is long. The guy is good. We didn't rate him. We did. We said he was very live, as I remember. I wrote an article about it. But Spence was more powerful, but more predictable in a sense that Pacquiao might have been able to do a few more things. Not that he would have won, but he would have maybe had a little bit more success at times with Spence. Who knows? But yeah, Charles is right too. Crawford, this is a double whammy for Crawford. If he beats Sean, he's done with Arrow. So he wins two things, and I'm sure he's thrilled. He hasn't said anything. I see he says, yeah, he's free. He's free, finally. And Aram, I heard a little birdie whispered in my ear a few weeks ago that Top Rank, at this, is in financial trouble. I won't say who the little birdie was. Yeah, the little birdie is in a really good position, Frank, to say this.
Okay.
So I went, really? And he goes, oh, yes, that is a fact. That actually might be true because it makes sense that Aram was bitching about Terrence Crawford loses money in all his fights, right? So there might be some truth to that. And then the Crawford, I read today that the Crawford-Porter fight is pay-per-view, another one, 2 weeks after Plant and Canelo. It's also pay-per-view. And he said he's going to try to keep it reasonable because he's still got to dig in. He said, well, the fighters' purses are taking up a lot of the budget or whatever. Like, Bob, haven't you made enough money as a boxing promoter? Oh, my God. Jeez.
Well, okay, now, not to interrupt, but this is something we've talked about we really need to do. We need to find a promoter or a retired promoter or someone who's going to tell us exactly how much money they spend on a fight and what kind of profit they can make. Because for Top Rank to say, or for someone to say Top Rank is in financial difficulty, I find that hard to believe. Now,
yeah, I saw your face. Yeah.
Yeah, being a pseudo businessman myself, I understand how you operate and what you do. I get that. And I understand that your expenses are usually greater than what people understand. I understand that. But from big fights to big fights, how many top ranked fights have, no pun intended, tanked? How many of them that haven't been good box office? And let's also remember, as we're looking at the background that you have there, some of that money for all that stuff goes to Top Rank too. You know, the Modelo stuff and the weed, all that stuff goes to them. Who's putting on the fight? It doesn't go to HBO or to Showtime. It goes to the promoter of the fight. So I don't know how you put on a fight. I don't know how you can put on a fight without already knowing you made a profit before the fights happen, regardless of the gate, because you have so many other ancillary streams of revenue. So to say that, and again, if your source is legit, your source is legit, and that's what's happening, that's what's happening. I'm not going to argue that. But for an accumulation of things that have happened over the years with Top Rank, I find it very hard to believe that, as we've said a number of times, Bob Arum has the first dollar ever made from boxing. So, you know, and the next 2 or 3 billion after that as well. Now, maybe they're
operating. And Frank, I agree with you. I agree with you. I'm actually was shocked by that too, but he's very, very, very viable source.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say this though, and I understand. I agree with the source. I mean, the source is right there. But I think sometimes what we do when we look at business and we look at structured business, that we had this idea of how things are run, right? You think about Top Rank, think about all of the greatness they've had, all of the great boxers they've had, how much millions of dollars, if not billions, who knows how much they really made. But we look at it in a certain luster, and it has this glow about it and everything too. But then if you really know business though, you know how sometimes businesses can look a certain kind of way, but the way that they're set up to run can be on a shoestring budget, which means a lot of the monies that you're talking about and all of these monies from the Modelos and all these other places and behind the arenas and all this other stuff is, I wouldn't guarantee it, but I'd be willing to say that the way the money's funneled, Bob Arum is getting his cash.
Well, that's what I was going to say, right?
Bob Arum is getting his money. Now, do they have to have all the money out front and have it like sitting in the bag, willing to do something? No, I don't see that. I see that them willing to do what they have to do when needed. They come up front with the money, they move forward, do what they got to do. But like you said, Bob Arum is an older gentleman. He's 80 plus?
Oh, yeah.
He didn't get that way with the money, what he's doing now, being an old fool. So, but again, remember, Bob Arum was in charge of the whole thing about trying to get the African-American athletes to try to convince Ali, Cassius Clay at the time, or Muhammad Ali, not to join, not to be a draft dodger or whatever you want to call it. So he was in on that game a long time ago. So he's not a stupid man. He knows the game. He's been working people for years. I ain't got nothing but love. Game recognized game. But so my point is, when you say financial trouble, to him it's not. I don't think he worries about it, because let's say, I'm gonna get off this very quickly. Let's say they say Top Rank after this fight, and by the end of the year, they had some financial strains. They're closing down, right? What happens? People say, "Oh, it's a shame." Is Bob Arum broke? Hell no.
Well, that was
not him.
But it's just another venture. But that's just that. So, I mean, when I heard that, I'm like, okay, well, financial strain means it may not have all the money up under the sign. But Bob Arum, if he left tomorrow.
Yeah. Top Rank may be in financial trouble.
Yeah.
Bob Arum isn't in financial
trouble. Exactly.
There's a difference there, right? Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. That's what it means. Yeah. Not him.
Yeah. Now, the thing is, and we're talking about Bob Arum, if I'm not mistaken, the first fight that Bob Arum tried to match wasn't it Grant versus Lee? So, anyway. Anyhow, I thought about that for a while. So, I'm supposed to get a better, anyway. All right, but the idea being that if this is the case, which, again, if your source says it is, I take that at full face value. Maybe it would be the time for, please, Bob Arum to say, "I'm done. This is the last thing I had to fight. This is the last battle I had to win. We got out from under Terrence Crawford. We're going to make some money off of that, hopefully, or not, and I can prove my point. I'm 85 years old, or whatever the hell I am. I'm done. Give it to my boys. Give it to somebody else. You guys see what you can do with it." Because as we've discussed earlier in this show and in the last few weeks, the game has changed. It is different. Not to say it's better or worse, it is just different. You can't make a fight the way you used to. And again, we've got a Triller here, which we've talked about them more than I ever thought we would, trying to kick the door down, doing things a different way. The Zone, doing things a different way. You know, you got PBC doing things a different way, or an offshoot of the way it used to be. Because let's face it, Don King was different than what was going on before him. Now Don King seems pretty tame compared to what's going on now in certain respects. So maybe, you know, and I know, and we're all getting to a certain age too, where it's like, retired, I can still hunt. What do I need to go out there? Well, maybe the game has changed enough for you that you need to find something else and just go sit on the beach and drink mimosas all day. For most of us, that would be okay. But idea being, for some people, that's tough. And we've all heard the horror stories of people retiring, and 6 months later, their life is because they didn't have purpose to get up and move around. Personally, I would be fine with it, but you know, yeah, I have no problem at all. But you know, there's some people that it's tough. And I've known those people that they just couldn't function without having that purpose. But this is more of an entrepreneurial thing, so I think Bob Aaron would find something else to do. Maybe Bob Aaron would be interested in investing in Ultimate Sportsman.
As long as he doesn't watch a lot of the old shows, Frank. And you can tell him, that John guy, I kicked his ass months ago.
I don't know what was.
He's gone. He's out of here. I don't even like that guy.
And here's why we bought the bleep machine, Mr. Aaron. But understanding that we have some nice stuff coming up in the midst of all the crud we've been talking about. So next week, not this weekend, there's not a lot happening this weekend. We finally have Joshua Usyk. Now, I know we've talked about this a few times, but I want to look at this in a different perspective than what we normally talk about. Because here's the thing that I don't think we get most of the time. There are 3 belts on the line here. 3 belts. Now, I know we've talked about the significance of the belts and blah, 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 blah. But this is the fight with the almost unified heavyweight champion. How is it possible, and maybe we brought this up before, John, but how is it possible that we don't recognize Anthony Joshua, the world in general, as being the top heavyweight out there? That he's looking for crumbs after the Fury Wilder fight.
I think because of people perceive Fury as the better fighter. And I think Joshua went down in flames in a lot of people's minds when he went down in flames against Ruiz. And even though he won the rematch, it didn't really prove a lot because he fought a different way and he looked like he was afraid to get knocked out. He won, but his reputation went down a little, and he was never considered a great fighter anyway. That word "great" is thrown around so much it drives me crazy. None of these guys are great fighters to me. None of the heavyweights are great fighters. I'm trying to think, is there anybody nowadays that I consider? I did consider Lomachenko a great fighter. I don't know anymore, maybe for a while. In my past, I considered Floyd Mayweather a great fighter. People like that. Jose Napoles, I considered him a great fighter. Nowadays, like Terrence Crawford and Errol Spence. Do I consider them great fighters? No. I consider them very good? Yes. So I think with Joshua, he was moving up to that point, and then he got exposed in a sense. And if you'd watched any of his fights, I'd seen him be wobbled before, so I wasn't exactly stunned. I was stunned, but I wasn't shocked, if that makes any sense. So he's got the belts that he won back when he beat Ruiz, but that doesn't mean he's the king of the hill to most people. Most people want the Fury fight in him to show that he's the king of the hill. So I think that's why there's a little bit of doubt about him. And then Fury's got to fight a very motivated Deontay Wilder here on October 9th. So that's cool. I love that. We've got September 25th. We've got Usyk. And Usyk is no pushover. Usyk could beat Joshua. He could. If he can take it and move and surprise him and use angles, right, he could definitely beat him. He's all bulked up. So that fight is another one of these that's flying under the radar. But that one has an upset floating around in it, somewhere. That one's possible in an upset. So wouldn't it be cool if Usyk wins and then Wilder knocks out Fury?
Right. Then what we have, right? What's going on there? Right.
That would make sense in this insane boxing year that we've witnessed. The big fight that they want so badly, they're going to fight twice, supposedly. Joshua and Fury, I'm speaking of, doesn't happen because they both got beat. Right. As a writer, I would absolutely love it. Twilight Zone-ish, so I love that. But yeah,
okay,
that's a good one.
Let's look at this historically. Now, we go back to 2016. We get the Charles Martin fight where Joshua gets the belt. If I remember correctly, it's the belt that was taken away from Fury. Is that correct?
I believe so. One of the belts.
Yeah, the IBF belt. Right. Okay.
The IBF belt. Yeah, that might not have been a Fury belt. I don't know.
So I'm trying to get that in my head. I'm trying to remember what happened. So that's 2016. Then
that's when he won his first belt. Right. Yes.
Then he gets the other two belts, the WBA and he gets the the WBA belt when he beats Klitschko Vladimir Klitschko in 2017. And then the WBO belt comes when he beats Parker in 2018. And then he loses him to Ruiz and gets him back. So looking at that timeline, he's lost one fight since he first got the belt in 2016. And he redeemed himself for that. Charles, is this, I guess the best way of putting it is this guy a legitimate champion? Or are we in general dismissing him because we want to see these other guys as the champions?
No, I think the factor that he came through what he did, you got to consider him a legitimate champion. I think it'd be doing a disservice because, for him the way that even though he was able to outlast Klitschko, right, even though he wasn't in his prime, he's fought some fights where he's proven he's worthy of being a champion.
Yeah.
For those that know and really feel strongly about it, excuse me, the reason why Wilder and Fury are getting the love is because, excuse me, they're the only two that he hasn't really conquered. And they decide to face one another. And they showed you what, now it's like, okay, I beat you once, you beat me. There's still a lot of controversy going about it. And I think people are still waiting for Joshua to take the ultimate challenge. And I think one of those two gentlemen, whoever wins that fight, people would think that's legit. And you mentioned about Ruiz, it allowed naysayers like myself to go, see, I told you, when you come over to America, and this guy is not even one of our best. Right. And you're lacking and slacking, and he caught you, and you can't take a punch. See what happens? And then the second time, you were being all cautious and safe, so you boxed him, so you didn't lose your titles. So when are you going to take a legitimate risk? I guess it's one of those things where you go, excuse me, the question is, or the way it comes down is, the question is, if you take the legitimate risk to be considered great, fighting Deontay Wilder or Fury, Tyson Fury, then the people will consider you the legitimate champion that you want to be. One of the best, not say the best of all time or anything like that, but consider you a legitimate champion. But that's the same thing. So if he does that, then that's what he will receive. But until that time, more people like myself, because I was I was very close to give him his due. And I'm like, well, he's finally coming to America. But then he lost to Ruiz. And I was like, see, just when I wanted to hand you the keys to the car, you failed your test. And I think that's going to always follow him until he gets into the ring with one of those two guys. So not to say it's not legit. You won the title fair and square, even if against some older fighters or guys that may not be on the same level, you still got to give him his props and his love because he's the champion. But if you want to, because it's different between good and great. You're a damn good fighter and a damn good champion. But you want to go to the next level, being the top of the upper echelon, you got to take that step, baby.
And it seems like, and we'll go back in time, and we can go through this all the time. You need to fight that guy. This is the problem we have with Crawford, or that some people have with Crawford. Who's he really fought? Well, he's beat everyone he's fought, but circumstances out of your control. You know, it looked like the Spence thing was going to happen, then it didn't happen, and Spence went and fought Patrick. Looked like this is going to happen, blah, 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 blah. You know, we couldn't bestow greatness on Hearns, or we couldn't bestow greatness on Leonard until he fought Durant. Okay, we lost that, so we redeemed himself. We couldn't bestow greatness on Hearns until he fought Leonard, and then, you know, then Hagler and all that. We had to have that happen because there had to be somebody that you conquered in order to be the unconquerable. Well, in this day and age, it's kind of hard to do that. We can't prove that Anthony Joshua is really, I don't know if legit is the right word, but the champion until he fights the best challengers out there. Unfortunately, that's not up to him, apparently.
I don't know about that one.
Well, but you know what I mean, though. I mean,
don't know about that one.
Do you think he's ducking Fury or Wilder?
Dude, really? Ask yourself that question. And let's look at history. Ask yourself that question.
Okay. So if he keeps saying, from what I'm hearing, that he wants the winner of this fight.
How long we been waiting? How long we been waiting?
Oh, right? I know. But how long has he been saying that?
Yeah.
So I see. Okay, we'll let you guys. Go ahead.
Let me just say this. I find it ironic. I mean, I remember when we talked about Fury, or Fury was brought up, and you know, before he fought Klitschko and all that other stuff. But Joshua has been around for what I've known for a long time, and he was the hot guy. Everybody was talking about him. And Deontay Wilder was coming up. He was around. Everybody knew he was undefeated and whatnot. So even before Fury became, to me, legit in a lot of people's eyes, Deontay Wilder was available and was out there. But Joshua, in my opinion, along with his folks, thought he was so much better than Wilder. And he didn't have to stoop down to a so-called one-dimensional fighter, right? But then Wilder kept coming on, and then he wins the fight, and everybody's like, oh, wow, maybe he is the real deal, or whatever like that. But still, I think Joshua had the opportunity for a long time because he was kind of becoming the guy sitting on top of the throne. That I don't think he went looking for Wilder. I really don't. Now he's saying it sounds good because that makes sense. But for the longest time, he had the chance and he didn't do it. To me, it seems like he kept taking fights that either he was comfortable when he knew he could win, but he ran into a snag. He ran into Ruiz, who was a popcorn eating, cupcake, beer drinking, tequila shotting guy that just says, I'm gonna get in there, and if you don't come with, I'm gonna whoop your. And
that's hands though.
That's what he did. But the point of it is, I think a lot of people would say that, in their opinion, that Joshua was very careful, along with so many other people that they say, picking their opponents. Let's be real, as I get off this last point. If you ask anybody before the Ruiz fight, did they literally ever think Ruiz would ever beat Joshua? 98.9% of the people say, hell no. Just saying.
Okay, well, all right. So let's look at this with a little bit more of a fine-tooth comb down. Both of them, Fury and Joshua, beat Klitschko. Those were Klitschko's last couple of fights or something like that. Consecutively, they beat him. If Fury hadn't gone away, because there's a 3-year gap after Klitschko worked before he came back, would Joshua have fought Fury at that time?
I think so, yeah, because they're both Brits, and they know they would have sold out the O2 in about 2 seconds. I think it would have happened. I see. Charles and I have been saying this basically the same thing, but in different ways. I've been saying that Eddie Hearn has protected Joshua most of his career, and he's his cash cow. So Eddie's his promoter. So Eddie does not like the Usyk fight. I had to write it. Eddie was having a meltdown when they were forcing the fight. He does not want it because he knows that. See, this is the thing. This is the way I see it. See, I will never. I'll say this point blank. I will never say Joshua, even if he beats Fury, I'll never call him a great fighter. Because he's not. I'll say he's in my opinion, He's very good if he beats Fury, because Fury is very good to me. But Joshua has been managed in a way that makes you go, okay, what are you worried about? What are you afraid of? You know, and Eddie has been very protective of Joshua. And I know what you're saying about Wilder, Charles. I think you're right, though. I think they thought, Wilder's a joke. All he's got is one punch, and we could beat him with one hand tied behind our back. And they were talking trash to each other. Too bad they never fought, and they probably never will now. Well, it's possible, but it would have been a hell of a fight. I'm telling you, it would have been really an interesting fight. I mean, that would have been you will not miss that one. You will be there watching that one. So, and that's the way I group these guys, that none of them are great, no matter what. So I think, back to your question, Frank, yes, I think Fury, they would have fought by now. I still will always say that I think Fury would beat Joshua. I do, just because he's clever and he can do a few more things that Joshua can't do. But and that would have helped us understand Joshua more if that had happened. We would have known. Because like we said, we're still like, who's he fighting? And that's the same thing that happened to Wilder real fast. Is Wilder wasn't fighting really anybody. He was fighting mandatories. But the last part, Frank, is that, Charles, it's the heavyweights now. That's the trick. Right. See, the heavyweight division, which used to be the golden division back when we were younger, is now just maybe 3 or 4 guys, and that's it. And the 3 or 4 guys aren't great. Well, so that's what hurts boxing.
Now, we throw that word around collectively because who's the GOAT? You hear that all the time now. Who's the GOAT?
Nowadays?
Charles, what is and I know we talked about the Mount Rushmore, but first of all, when we look at Hall of Fame, we've opened up the Hall of Fame to everybody.
Yeah.
Okay, we just had Larry Walker inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame. I love Blair Walker, one of my favorite players. Larry Walker.
Your hitter.
Yeah, Larry Walker.
And good fielder.
Yeah, but that's not one of the upper echelon of people.
Right.
Chris Bosh is going to go into the NBA or the Naismith Hall of Fame. Not an upper, exactly. Not an upper echelon. Oh my God, once in a generational player. Okay, good player, put up some good numbers on some bad teams, but not a generational player. Don't even get me started on the Tennis Hall of Fame. You win a Grand Slam or make a final, you're in the Hall of Fame. I don't get that at all. Because they've got to induct someone every year. But now they've got to induct 8 people every year. When we're talking about boxing, what's the criteria that you have to be considered great? Because we just said this guy isn't great, but he's held a belt for a while. And I know we've talked about what belts mean and what belts don't mean. What is the criteria for being a great boxer?
Well, I think a lot of it, for me, it starts with being able to pass the test of time, right? Because the great fighters, they go through things. They usually go through different divisions, right? Even when you look at to the standpoint of, talking about Ali when he's light heavyweight, right? When he went to heavyweight, he fought legitimate people, and he fought people that literally had a chance that could beat him. And he took a lot of, if he didn't lose, he had a lot of injuries, getting jaw broken and a lot of people, and losing to Joe Frazier. So he was able to deal with adversity and still come up and rise when needed. And I think you got to have monumental victories. You got to have victories people go, yeah, remember when he fought such and such and such. And you may not like the way he did it, right? Because nobody really knew what the hell Ali was doing with the rope-a-dope. But he came out with it and he won convincingly. He did something nobody else has done. You have to have memorable moments where people go, remember that time? And not just that one time. You go, yeah, man, remember that time? And then over and over with that standpoint. But I also think, too, that you are not afraid to fight the best. I think that goes a long way. Because as much as people love Sugar Ray Leonard, I was a bigger Thomas Hearns fan. And I was like, he's scared. But Sugar Ray fought it, and then he fought Hagler. And you got to fight the best or consider the best. And then you do it, and you don't have any qualms about it. And then at that point, you just do you. You don't make excuses. You come back, you fight, and that will get you over. As much as I love Juan Manuel Marquez, he's not going to be in the upper echelon. He's a solid, very good fighter. I love him. I watch him fight any day, but he's not on that level because there's only so many fights. But again, back to the point of you got to fight the best. You got to beat the best also too. Not just fight them, you got to beat them. You got to have memorable fights, and you got to pass. You got to, the test of time. So when you so-called get old, you still show, a la Floyd and Canelo. All right, young boy, or whatever. Yeah.
Well, okay, you hit something, and I'm gonna hit the same part of that just in a different way. Memorable wins. It doesn't hurt to have a memorable loss if you can redeem yourself from that loss. Joe Louis, Floyd Patterson,
Muhammad Ali.
Lee.
True.
This is where I think we downgrade Larry Holmes. And not to say it was the tomato can or whatever you want to call, but you didn't lose until that last fight, and you didn't have a chance to redeem yourself. Now, obviously, there's reasons for that, but it's also where were your memorable fights getting to that point? So I agree with you. I'm not to say Larry Holmes wasn't great. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that's an example I'm coming up with.
Yeah.
John, what does it mean to you to say this guy's great? Because you started this today. When you say he's not great, he's good, but he's not great. What does great mean?
Well, great to me is obvious. It's like a great movie or a great actor. Of course, this is always opinion, so there's going to be differences of opinion. A great actor to me, I'll use that, is Marlon Brando, and that's because I love On the Waterfront. Absolutely love that movie. One of my all-time favorites. A great fighter are two guys that we talk about a lot to me. Not just because they never lost, and that's Floyd Mayweather and Andre Ward. It was the way they did it. Now, Floyd gets more controversy because I don't count his last win against that MMA Irishman.
That dude.
Yeah, I still say he's 49-0, and there's nothing wrong with being 49-0 like Rocky Marciano. But he did it all. Some guys say he didn't fight certain guys, whatever. I still think the way he fought, almost every fight he dominated. You remember, there was a couple that were like, well, it was usually up to him whether the fight. This is greatness to me. It's up to you whether the fight is competitive. You're so good, you can let a guy in, and then if you don't, you're just going to win 11 out of 12 rounds. He's that good. Andre Ward, same thing to me. As he got older and he got injuries and the Kovalev thing, but when he was fighting in the Super 6, when nobody gave him a chance to win it, nobody. 28 out of 31, I'll never forget, 28 out of 31 so-called experts. He not going nowhere. Kessler going to knock him out. He won the whole thing. That's an achievement. He fought the beast Kovalev. Whether he beat him or not in the first fight's debatable, but he fought him. No one had beat him. And he beat him, and then he beat him in the rematch. That's hitting that mountaintop. I'm talking about the recent guys. So I think you've got levels in boxing. They always talk about, right? So you got very good, and then you got great. What happened with the Hall of Fame, I think, was changed is when they started, you could say, lowering the bar to accept other type of achievements, like Arturo Gatti. Gatti was never a great fighter, obviously. He was good. He wasn't great, but he was a thrill-a-minute fighter.
Right.
He made, you're talking about memories. People talk about his fights. He had a number of memorable fights, even when he lost, like you're talking about, Frank. So I wrote in Intimate Warfare that he deserved to be in because of the other type of memories that he created for boxing. And then, of course, Sylvester Stallone got inducted into the Boxing Hall of Fame. But I didn't have a problem with that either because of the impact of Rocky and on boxing, that it helped boxing. And I love that movie. You know that. I quote it every week, don't I?
Yeah.
So I love that movie. So it's changed. But if you're sticking with just boxers, greatness is what we were saying before. Greatness is Sugar Ray Robinson.
Right.
Greatness is Joe Louis. Greatness is Muhammad Ali. Those are the guys that are obviously great. Then you got a few guys bumping up there. Now, you could make an argument that Larry Holmes was great. You could. Because he just had the bad misfortune of following Muhammad Ali and having an attitude that people didn't like. And then for Charles and me, what he did when he fought him, we're never going to let him off the hook on that. That didn't even have to happen. He did it anyway. But when he fought Kenny Norton, that was a great fight. And he had to dig deep to win that fight. And then he fought Jerry Cooney and beat him. And that was a better fight than most people remember.
Yeah, credit for, right.
Competitive fight. So you could put Larry Holmes up there. But then, see, this is the thing that I love, Frank, when you start talking about great. Thank you. But he'd be right there. You made me completely forget what I was going to say now. Thanks, Charles. But when you're talking great, okay, I remember now. Mike Tyson. Now, Mike Tyson for a while looked like he was great, or working his way towards being great. If you were to say, would you consider him great? I'd say no.
Yeah.
But he should be in the Hall of Fame, though. See, so that thing you're talking about.
There, right, yeah.
Right, exactly. That's what makes it so hard to and everyone's always going to argue. You're right. Larry Walker, great example. When I saw that, I went, oh, yeah, he was good, but he wasn't great. He wasn't the legendary guys that we think of with the Hall of Fame. So it's
one of my favorite players. He was.
Yeah, no, he was a hell of a baseball player. But so it's just, I think the bar is lowered, and that word great in everything, music, movies, boxing, tennis, like your sport, Frank, real fast. When I think about great tennis matches, what do I think of? McEnroe, Borg. Mm-hmm. Nothing comes close to that. As far as I've tried to watch some of it, nope. I mean, Pete Sampras was good. Was McEnroe, Connors. I mean, I don't know what it was about back in those days, and not just because I'm an old grouch, but it seems like everything was better in those days. Not exactly the talent, but there was something different with everything back then. I can't quite put my finger on it, but when I say great, to me is obviously great. That's how I would sum it up.
When I'm thinking Hall of Fame, I'm not thinking Pat Cash.
Right.
It's just, right. I'm like, really? Okay. So when we look at it, this is something that I think that we are now in a mode where we have to win all the time.
Right.
That's our mindset. We're looking at, the football coach at USC just got fired because, well, it's USC. Do you have a better alternative right now? No, but we had to fire him. Charles in Ohio State country, the DC is on hot water. Is there a solution? No, we just want him out. But do you have somebody better in mind? No, he shouldn't be there. He needs to be just gone. But what are you going to replace him with? Well, doesn't matter. Okay. So you have to win at all costs. But there are people, we mentioned Larry Holmes, Rocky Marciano. There are people where we say it was a weak division. Or Floyd Mayweather Jr. You were dominant against weak competition. Are you downgraded because maybe the competition wasn't weak, but because you were dominant? Because we expect you to have tough fights all the time, and when you don't, is it because that you're that good? I mean, if it weren't for Larry Holmes, somebody else would have been heavyweight champion of the world, and we've been saying, hey, there's the heavyweight champion of the world. And it could have been somebody that could have been heavyweight champion of the world for 5-6 years. Michael Dokes, I don't know. It could have been somebody. I don't know. But because there was Larry Holmes there, you couldn't get a foothold. Is that Larry Holmes' fault because he was better than everybody else? Or is it everyone else's fault that they weren't as good as Larry Holmes? So we knocked Larry Holmes down. It's hard to judge. So when we do that, and this is why when Charles said memorable wins, I also said memorable losses help too, because now you've had to go down and come back. I don't know, just something to speculate on. So
can I add throw something in there?
Please do, because I really didn't want to end it on that.
I appreciate it. I'm just saying, but when you say memorable losses, though, I mean it's an opportunity to come back and get that memorable win.
Right, exactly.
But you can have a memorable loss and still not get that memorable win. That's why I'm not really big on that loss thing, because it's like you mentioned about Floyd. He never had a memorable loss. But then on the other hand, it was kind of like, well, you know, he really didn't fight the best. No, he did.
Right.
He did fight the best. He didn't run from anybody. So the Larry Holmes and Floyd is totally different to me, because Larry Holmes had nobody to fight. Larry Holmes did what he got to do, and he fought that. Floyd waited. You can say what you want to, Sugar Shane Mosley. I mean, we can go through it. He fought Pacquiao late.
Yeah, right.
He fought, I mean, guys that were even bigger than him. He got it done. But I just think when you had that standpoint of when you have nobody to fight, you like you said, there's only so much talent there. You do what you do. Yeah, you go that way. But if you threw right now Canelo Alvarez in there, okay, will he be considered a great fighter? Yes, he will, because of the fact that he was on it for so long and he learned. He watched very closely some other people before him, and he learned the game. And not only did he learn it, he was great at going up where nobody else thought he would, 175, whatever, 168, and just clowning them because he said, oh man, they don't do this right. I can see their weaknesses, which is a lot of other people do. But he still has other people that he could battle lower that he won't face because it's a strategy thing. But I think that's part of it too. Now, in the modern day era, back in the day, if guys were ducking, you wouldn't be considering them great. But in this modern day era, because the way they do it, you just got to change your mindset a little bit, just because of the fact that that's the game that they play. So can we not say somebody's always gonna say Canelo Alvarez was great because his longevity and what he's done.
Right.
Say what you want to. He's beaten 3 or 4 undefeated champions that when you look back at their skill level, they're like, well, were they good? Were they good at all? Same thing they said about Floyd. He made him look ordinary. You're like, well,
that's my point, right? That's my point, right? You know. That's why I think we give Larry Holmes more credit, because we don't know how good the guys were in this fight because he beat them. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, and I just put this one thing in too about Rocky Marciano. You know, that's why I don't like to discuss different times in history, because if a guy is fighting everybody that he's supposed to fight, it's not his fault if the guy he's fighting is a little past his prime or whatever.
You can't control it.
He can't help that. He has to fight who's available, right? So you don't penalize him. Rocky Marciano is probably the most debated fighter ever on social media because he's undefeated, as we know. And when you watch him fight, he's ugly in there. You know, you talk about Deontay Wilder doing things bad, but Rocky's crouching. He's only 5'10", 185, 190 pounds, but probably the toughest guy that I've ever seen. Split nose and all that. So I never want to take anything away from him. I will say, but it's hard for me to use that great criteria that you guys are talking about with him. But he's undefeated. So you got to give it to him. And there's always going to be, with boxing like this, there's always going to be this debate about this or that, or he should have fought him or whatever, you know. But I know what you mean, though, Frank. One of the things Muhammad Ali did that is so memorable, of course, is that he came back from that crushing defeat to Joe Frazier. He came back from that defeat to Kenny Norton, and he won the rematches. Leon Spinks. So that really cemented the trifecta, right? That cemented his greatness because of not only the fact that he was a great fighter, but he had that inner fortitude, intestinal fortitude, where he could dig deeper than most everybody and come back and win. So that's another degree of greatness.
Well, I think what we do is we foist our things on there that we can't do anything about. Now, yeah, if a guy's ducking somebody, and I don't really believe that too many people are ducking people, I think that's more from the promotion side of it than it's from the fighter side of it. That's just my personal opinion. But I go back to early to mid-'80s, West Virginia football. Don Nehlen's team was undefeated, and they were going to the bowl season, and Major Harris was the quarterback. And then someone said, well, you guys aren't as good as yours. Like, we're undefeated. Yeah, dude, like, look, we play who we play. We don't make the schedule. Our only thing we can do is go out and beat the team ahead of us. That's it. We don't have any control over the rest of that stuff.
Right.
And that's kind of where I look at some of these guys. Again, some people have more control over who they fight, like a Floyd Mayweather. He has more control over his career than other people have. But he's still, we took off 6 or 7 fights that were good fights. Just because he won them doesn't mean that they weren't tough fights. So I think that we overuse the word great, but we also don't use it correctly. I think what both of you said is perfect. That the memorable wins, I think memorable losses help how you bounce back from that. But also, if you dominate the people in front of you, you can't really say that you dominated Bones. Because just because you made them look bad doesn't mean that they were bad.
That was the point.
That's part of your talent level. So, all right.
Hey, look, real fast, Frank. Look what Floyd Mayweather did to Juan Manuel Marquez. Yeah. This is a guy that knocked out Hall of Famer Manny Pacquiao, right?
Right.
Floyd Mayweather beat him with ease.
Yeah.
Wasn't even competitive.
Right.
He won 11 out of 12 rounds, I think, if I remember correctly, or at least 10. Marquez was frustrated beyond belief by after that. He was like, this guy's invisible, can't hit him. That's greatness when you do that to another guy who's also very good. That's another sign to me.
And we could go about this, was Barrera greater than Morales? Was Morales great? Or is it just because of how they fought each other and all that? I mean, there are so many ways you can put this.
Yeah.
But I think when you say this is a Hall of Fame, it's got to be a no doubt in your mind. When we say this is a guy that's a great person that deserves to be on Mount Rushmore, it like you said, it's obvious. You don't have to debate it. You don't have to defend it. You go, yeah, this guy's cool. You guys come with an argument why it's not. Try it as you may. In my mind, he's great. So, speaking of which, I think we did a great show.
Wow.
On that note, I may spend a few minutes after this trying to design the label for EBL, but I'm sure Charles can come up with that on his own. But I like the
already
idea
in the
that.
works.
So, yeah. So let's call the retiring Don King and Bob Aaron. There's a good thing for both of them to do. Anyhow, all right.
They'd be the promoters.
On that note, we will see you next week. Thanks again, and keep swinging. Peace.